Okay, thank you.
All right, so section 4.1, writing equations in slope-intercept form. After doing this with a few different activities, including the linear fitness activity, you should be feeling pretty good about creating equations in slope-intercept form because you already did it multiple times. You created an equation for the edge red membership, like the y equals 9.99x plus 49.99. You created equations for like the y adult youth, what was it? The young adult, sorry, like y equals 36x. So now we're going to look at creating an equation using 2 points and putting them into slope-intercept form. So remember, anytime you have 2 points and I ask you to find the slope, remember the slope formula here? This helps you find the slope between the 2 points without having a graph. So if I gave you 2 points like 2, -3 and -5, 7, this is the first x, so this is x1, this is the first y, so this is y1, this is the second x, so it's x2, this is the second y, so it's y2. What you do is you put these numbers into the formula. Y2 is 7, that's where the 7 comes from, minus y1 is -3, 7 minus -3 is 10, and then -5 is x2, that's why they put -5 here, minus 2 is x1, and -5 minus 2 is -7. So this simplifies to be -10/7 for my slope. That's simplified because you don't have any factors of 10 or 7 that you can make this smaller. So that would be the simplified slope. You would not put this into mixed number form, that would just be it. Also, another refresher is of slope-intercept form. So the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, given the slope and the y-intercept, is y equals mx plus b, where the number that's in front of x is your slope, and the b here is your y-intercept.
How is yours so far more down than mine? So I can't even break it.
So for example, if you have a slope and it tells you the slope is 1/2 and the y-intercept is at 0, 7, the equation of the line would be y equals 1/2 x plus 7. The slope always goes in front of the x. That's why that would go here. And the y-intercept, just the actual number, goes here. You don't worry about the ordered pair, like the 0 of it. You would just put the plus 7 there. And that's how you create an equation in slope-intercept form. Okay? All right, so the next thing is reviewing how to write an equation in slope-intercept form. But this actual example is a little bit too difficult for what we are currently working with. We did not necessarily do this yet. So I'm going to change the points. This is one solution. I'm going to change the points and have the same exact problem. The points are going to be, let's say, 2, 4, and 0, 6. So I'm going to do the same type of problem, but now we're going to use these 2 points. If you don't mind just writing those 2 points underneath of there.
Why can you not do it this way?
Well, this one's a little bit more difficult because for an equation in slope-intercept form, you need 2 things, the slope and the y-intercept. And the 2 points that they give you, neither one is the y-intercept, so you have to solve for it, which is a little bit too difficult yet. So what we would do to find the equation in slope-intercept form is first we would find the slope. So they tell you in step 1, find the slope of the 2 points. So to find the slope of the 2 points, I would do 6 minus 4, since that's y2 minus y1. And I would divide that by 0 minus 2. Well, 6 minus 4 is equal to 2. And 0 minus 2 is equal to -2. So 2 divided by -2 would simplify just to be -1. So the slope of this line is -1. So now that we have the slope, now we need to find the y-intercept. So my slope I know is -1, and now we need to find the y-intercept. Now in the actual problem itself, they give you the y-intercept. Look at the points they give you, 2, 4, and 0, 6. What is the y-intercept of this line?
What'd you say?
What is the y-intercept of this line?
It's 4 and 6, right?
Nope.
0.
Where does this line cross the y-axis at? What number?
-1. Because then we just find the
Nope. That's the slope is telling you the steepness of the line. The 2 points that we have here are 2, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 0, 6.
Oh, 6.
Yeah, 6. Anytime you have a point that has 0 in the x spot of the ordered pair, that means that this is where it crosses the y-axis. So the y-intercept is at 6. If the slope is -1 and the y-intercept is 6, and your equation must be in slope-intercept form, what would the equation be? Y equals what?
Y equals -1 plus 6.
Perfect. So it would be y equals -1x plus 6. Exactly. So that's how you create an equation in slope-intercept form. You find the slope, and then you use the y-intercept to put it into the formula. Okay, so if you flip this over to the next page, on this page, it's asking you to create equations of all of these linear lines. So they give you 4 graphs, and they first want you to find the slope and y-intercept of these 4 graphs, and then they want you to create the equation in slope-intercept form. Not all of us have a graphing calculator, so at this point I'm not going to use a graphing calculator to verify the equations. But what I want you to do, please, is try just A and B. For A and B, I want you to find the slope and y-intercept of both of those lines and then put the equation in slope-intercept form. So don't move on to C and D, just please do A and B. I'll give you a few minutes and then we'll go over the answer.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when it's like 3 minus -1, doesn't that turn into like a plus or something? Did you finish? You gotta check on this. I think I got one. Gosh, dude. Alright, what'd you do for A? Yep, got that one. Yep, I got it.
for these two answers here. We're creating the equations in slope-intercept form. In order to do that, we have to first find the slope for both of the graphs and then find the y-intercept for both of the graphs, then put them into the formula. There's two ways to find slope, but I personally think because the way that these graphs are, it's easier for me to use the formula than it would be to use just like the counting method. So I'm going to use the formula which says take y2, subtract y1, and divide that by x2 minus x1. So y2 in this case is my second ordered pair. I wrote this one second, so this would be 3 minus negative 1. Be careful with the double negatives. Over 2 minus 0. 3 minus negative 1 is really 3 plus 1, which is 4. Over 2 minus 0 is 2. 4 over 2 simplifies to just be what?
2.
2. Positive 2. So this is your slope. So you can either write it as 2 or 2 over 1. I'll just usually write it as 2. And then the last thing that you need is the y-intercept. The picture of the graph actually gives you the y-intercept. Looking at the graph, where does this cross the y-axis? Ben?
-1.
At -1. So altogether, we will put the equation in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. You put the slope here, you put the y-intercept here, and if the y-intercept is positive, it'll be a plus positive number. If it's a negative, it'll be a minus that number. What would the equation be for this graph? Noah?
I don't know if this is right, but is it y equals 2x plus negative 1?
Yeah, y equals 2x plus negative 1, or just y equals 2x minus 1. So it's either y equals 2x minus 1 or y equals 2x plus negative 1. If you still like to add negatives like that, it's totally fine. But I will start to be writing my answers just like this. You might want to just get used to the minus instead of the plus negative. Yes?
So, actually, never mind.
Okay. All right, the next one. So we're going to be finding the slope of these 2 points first. I'm going to write 0, 2 first because that's just the one that comes first in my mind, and then 4, negative 2. I'm going to use the slope formula, which says take negative 2 and subtract 2. Over 4 minus 0. Negative 2 minus 2 more is negative 4. 4 minus 0 is 4. And negative 4 divided by 4 simplifies to be what?
-1.
Yep, negative 1. So this is my slope.
Summary?
Your y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Where does this graph cross the y-axis, Ben?
2.
2. So my slope is this, my y-intercept is this. What would this equation be in slope-intercept form? Y equals what? Noah?
Would it be y equals negative 1 plus 2?
Yes, you're just missing something.
Oh. X, negative 1x plus 2.
Perfect. Now you can write the negative 1, or you can actually write just a negative symbol and then the x, and drop the actual 1, and I'll still understand what that means. Okay, so that's writing equations in slope-intercept form. Now, the reason why I had us skip C and D is because if you look at these two equations here, they don't give you the y-intercept. And we're not yet ready to figure out how to solve those types of problems, so we're going to skip C and D for now. The next thing we're going to do today in class is look at this page here, writing equations in slope-intercept form, mathematical modeling. So please flip over to this page here. We're going to work on this word problem. So the graph below shows the cost of a smartphone plan. So here's a plan for a smartphone. We can see the x-axis is data usage versus the y-axis is cost per month. What they want you to do is first find what the y-intercept is of this line. Where does the line cross the y-axis? And interpret what that means in the context of the problem. So I want you to tell me what it is, and I also want you to say what that means. Then you're going to find the slope of the line, and then tell me what the slope means into the context of the problem. And then write the equation in slope-intercept form. So when you're trying to find the slope of a line, it's really important to use points that are perfectly accurate. So if I zoom in on this graph real quick, if everyone could just take a look here. One of the points that's perfect is this one right here. They show it to you in point form. But then if you look for the graph, you're looking for another point. I don't see them actually bold another point. So what you're doing is you're trying to find a point that's perfect. Like this point, it might be 250 here for x, but I have no idea what it is for y. See how if you were trying to figure out what y, like the y value is, you'd have to estimate it. It's like somewhere between 20 and 40. So that would not be a point that you would want to use. So then maybe you would try this one. This one, even though it looks kind of like it would be at 40, see how it's a tiny bit above? You're not going to want to use that one either. So when you're looking for points to use, you have to find one that looks pretty perfect. And in this whole entire graph, this is the only point that I think is perfect. So this point is perfectly at 2,000 on the x-axis and 80 on the y-axis. So the 2 points that I would use when finding the slope would be this point here, which is 0, 20, and this point here, which is 2,080. Does that make sense? So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and try this problem. 3 things. You're going to be finding slope, y-intercept, and then creating the equation of the line.
Wait, so I thought only 2,000 was where the y is. Or do you have to put the 80?
Well, each point is an ordered pair, which represents 2 numbers. So you would need the 2,000 and comma the 80.
Let's get
All
in.
right. Yeah.
Never mind. We're going over it. That doesn't matter.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with the first question. It's asking what the y-intercept of this line is. So where does this line cross the y-axis at? Noah?
Isn't it like 2080?
So it crosses the y-axis here at 2080.
Oh no, like 80 on the like this side and then 2000 on the bottom. So
Well, that would be an ordered pair. I'm looking for where this line crosses the y-axis. This line here.
oh, 20.
20, exactly. The y-intercept here is 20. So you can write it like this, like the y-intercept is 20, or you can write it in ordered pair form like this. But then they ask us to interpret what this means. So what does that mean? In context of the problem, what does the y-intercept mean? Like when we did the linear equations fitness activity, the y-intercept was how much money you had to pay initially to sign up for the gym membership. What does the y-intercept mean for this particular problem? Yep.
How much you pay monthly?
So how much you pay monthly is not what the y-intercept starting point means in this problem. Because at 0 months, the cost is $20 for this phone plan. So that doesn't mean that you pay that per month because this is at 0 months. I need everyone to focus. The y-intercept is right here. X represents data usage, how much data you use for your phone. Y represents the cost it is per month, so in dollars. So if you use 0 data, it's going to cost you $20. So what does that mean in the context of this problem? Yep.
I don't really think it's right, but there's a trial. If you use 2,000 megabytes of data, you will spend $80.
Yeah, I mean, that is correct. That is an ordered pair here. And I think that's what Noah was trying to say, too. That if you use 2,000 data megabytes, you're going to pay $80. Yes. But what I'm trying to ask you about is this point here, 0.20. Your y-intercept is the starting point for a line. This one is starting at 20, which means if you don't use any data, how much is it going to cost you?
$20.
$20. That doesn't mean you're going to. This plan is always $20 a month. That's what we will be finding next because that's what the slope will tell us. This just means if you don't use any data, you will spend $20. So it's almost as if like the phone itself must cost just like $20 to buy. Because without even spending any money on data, it's going to be $20. So they must have a plan where it's like, here you go, it's $20 to rent the phone, or it's a $20 phone, which would be very cheap. And then it's going to, that would be your starting amount of money that you always had to pay in the beginning. The next thing is finding the slope. To find the slope, you're going to want to find 2 points that work perfectly for the line. So the 2 points we're going to use are 1, the y-intercept, 0, 20, and 2, the next point I told you to use was 2080. So 2000, comma 80. So when you're finding the slope of this line, you're going to want to use the formula. The formula says take the second y and subtract the first one. So it's going to be 80 minus 20 on top, and then on the bottom, 2,000 minus 0. So 80 minus 20 is 60, and 2,000 minus 0 is 2,000. So you're always going to then want to simplify your fractions. So if you simplify this fraction by hand, you're just going to have to try and divide out factors until it can't be divided anymore. If you have a graphing calculator or any calculator at all for that matter, you could just put it in there and simplify it. And this fraction simplifies to be 3 over 100. Right? So 3 over 100. Now this is a different type of slope. We're not used to seeing these types of slopes. Usually our slopes are nice and easy, like 1/2 or 2/3. This is 3 over 100. Now remember, slope represents the rise over the run. Remember, the rise is the y variable over the x variable. What does the y variable stand for? What does the y variable stand for? Zoe?
The cost per month.
Yeah, it's money, so it's the cost. And what does the x variable stand for? Yep,
The data used.
data. So what can you tell me about 3 over 100? Zoe?
It's $3 for like 100.
Yeah.
megabytes.
Exactly. So this data plan says it's $3 a month for each 100 megabytes. Can I use MB for that? Of data. That's what the slope means.
Then
Yeah.
how is zero data use $20?
Because they have like they must make you pay for the phone initially, which is a very cheap phone. Okay, so that's how that works. The last thing is then create the equation in slope-intercept form. We have the intercept, we have the slope. What would the final equation be then? Y equals what? Zoe?
Y equals 100x.
So the slope is this. So it's not 100x, it's 3 over 100x. I don't know if that's what you said or not, and I just didn't hear you right. And then what else? Plus what? Ben?
20.
Perfect.
Say that.
Nice. All right, great. And then the last part here is asking us to communicate your answer with two separate open-ended questions. So what I want you to do here, it says, given the graph of a linear function, how can you write the equation of the line? I want you to write the answer here, so in a sentence. If you have a graph, how do you write the equation? What do you need? And then number 4 is asking you all to create your own equation, your own line, and then find that equation of the line given that. So if you could please take some time and try 3 and 4, and then we'll go over these before we leave today.